Captain Lee Min-ho floated in his command chair, watching the stars through the main viewport of his research ship. The vessel's stellar dawn was small compared to military ships, designed for science missions far from Earth. Today, they were studying strange energy readings near the edge of known space. "Captain," called out Navigation Officer Park Yuna from her station. "We're picking up some unusual signals ahead." Min-ho pushed himself toward her console, moving carefully in the zero gravity. "What kind of signals?" "I'm not sure. They're unlike anything in our databases." Yuna's fingers danced across the holographic controls. "The patterns are too organized to be natural." Dr. Kang-hoom, the mission's lead scientist, drifted over with her tablet in hand. "The energy signatures are fascinating. If we could get closer samples." "Absolutely not," interrupted Security Chief Kim Tai-ho. "We're already at the edge of mapped space. Going further could be dangerous." Min-ho studied the readings on Yuna's screen. The signals pulsed in complex rhythms, almost like a heartbeat. His scientific curiosity warred with his responsibility to keep his crew safe. "We'll move closer, but slowly," he decided. "Full scans, but we maintain distance for quick escape if needed." The stellar dawn moved forward on minimal power. Through the viewport, space looked the same as always. Black emptiness dotted with distant stars. But their instruments told a different story. The energy readings grew stronger with each kilometer. Then everything went wrong at once. Warning lights flashed, red across every console. The ship shuddered violently, throwing the crew against the walls. The main engines died with a sound like breaking glass. "Engine failure," Yuna shouted over the alarms. "All primary systems are offline. Emergency power only," reported Engineer Oh Soman from the back of the bridge. "We're dead in space." Min-ho felt his stomach drop, and not from the zero gravity. They were stranded in unknown territory, with no way to call for help. Earth was months away even at full speed. "Can we repair the engines?" he asked Salman. "Maybe, but it would take days. We need parts we don't have." That's when the scanners detected them. 3 massive ships appeared on their screens, moving toward them with deadly purpose. The vessels were unlike anything in human records, sleek and organic-looking like sea creatures made of metal and energy. "Captain," Yuna's voice was barely a whisper. "They're Velthor." Everyone on the bridge went silent. Every human knew about the Velthor Empire. They controlled dozens of star systems through fear and military might. Their law was simple. Any unauthorized ship in their space would be destroyed, no questions asked. The alien ships surrounded the stellar dawn quickly. Bright beams of energy locked onto the human vessel, holding it in place like invisible chains. A deep, harsh voice filled the bridge through their communication system. The translation computer worked frantically to convert the alien words into human language. "This is Commander Corval of the Velthor Third Fleet. Your vessel has entered sacred space without permission. According to Imperial law, you will be executed immediately." Min-ho's mouth went dry, but he forced himself to stand straight. As captain, it was his duty to try to save his crew. "This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the Earthship Stellar Dawn. We are peaceful researchers. Our engines failed, and we drifted into your territory by accident. We mean no harm to your people. Your intentions do not matter," the alien commander replied. "The law is absolute. Prepare to die." On the largest Velthor ship, Sub-Commander Talek watched the human vessel through the scanner feeds. The small ship was clearly damaged and posed no threat to anyone, but Imperial law was clear: trespassers must die. Talek had served the Empire for 20 years, following orders without question. He had destroyed countless enemy ships and never felt doubt. But something about this situation felt different. The human captain stood on his bridge, not begging for mercy or trying to flee. Instead, when one of his crew members was injured by falling debris, the captain immediately went to help. Talek watched as the human leader lifted the wounded person and carried him to safety. putting his own life at risk. "Sub-Commander, Commander, Commander," Corvell said sharply. "Begin the execution sequence." Talik's clawed hand moved toward the weapon controls, then stopped. In all his years of service, he had never seen an enemy leader risk himself to save a subordinate. The human's actions showed a quality that Velthor culture rarely valued: compassion. "Sir," Talik said carefully, "the human ship is defenseless. Perhaps we could simply escort them out of our territory." Corvell's insect-like head turned toward his second-in-command. "You question Imperial law?" "No, sir, but the humans clearly had no hostile intent. Their engines failed. It seems unnecessarily cruel to execute them for bad luck." The commander's mandibles clicked with annoyance, but after a long moment, he gave a small nod. "Very well, but you will handle this personally, so if they cause any trouble, their deaths will be on your head." Talik opened a private channel to the human ship. "Human captain, you will receive engine repair components. Use them quickly and leave our space immediately. You will never speak of this encounter to anyone." On the stellar dawn, the crew stared in amazement as alien technology materialized in their cargo bay. The parts were exactly what they needed to repair their engines. "Why?" Minho asked into his communicator. There was a long pause before Talik replied, "Because mercy, once given, creates a debt that can never be fully repaid." As the human ship limped away toward safe space, Talik watched it go. He had violated everything his people believed in, but somehow it felt like the right choice. Neither the human captain nor the Velthor warrior knew that this single act of mercy would one day save both their species from extinction. 3 years had passed since the encounter in Velthor space. Captain Lee Minho, now promoted to admiral, was reviewing supply reports in his office on Earth Defense Station when the emergency alarms began screaming. "Admiral, to the command center." Immediately came the urgent announcement over the station's speakers. Minho rushed through the corridors, his mind racing through possible threats: pirates, rogue asteroids. Nothing had prepared him for what he saw on the main display screen. "What am I looking at?" he asked Commander Osomian, who stood frozen at the tactical station. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies. Something is ... eating entire star systems." On the screen, satellite feeds showed what had once been the prosperous mining world of New Geneva, where a planet and 3 moons should have been. There was only empty space, not destroyed completely, gone, as if they had never existed. "How is that possible?" Minho whispered. Dr. Kang Hoon, now Earth's chief science advisor, pulled up more data. "The reports are coming in from everywhere, Admiral. Whole civilizations are just vanishing. The Altarian Republic, the Crystal Worlds, even the machine, planet of Cogitum, all gone." "What about distress signals? Survivors?" "None, sir. Whatever's doing this leaves nothing behind." Over the next few hours, more reports flooded in. The unknown threat was moving through the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything in its path. Advanced civilizations that had existed for thousands of years were erased in minutes. Then came the transmission that changed everything. The communication came through on an emergency frequency, the signal weak and full of static. When the translation computers finally decoded it, the bridge fell silent. "This is Sub-Commander Talik of the Velthor survivors. We seek immediate sanctuary in human space." Minho felt his blood turn cold. The Velthor Empire was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. If they were running, what could possibly be chasing them? "Put 'em through," Minho ordered. The screen flickered, then showed the familiar insect-like face of the Velthor warrior who had saved his life years ago. But Talik looked different now. His armor was cracked, his mandibles scarred, and his eyes held a fear that Minho had never seen in any Velthor before. "Admiro minho Talik." Est's translated voice was filled with exhaustion. "I remember you from our encounter in the border regions. You will think I am your enemy, but I come to warn you of something far worse. What happened to your empire, Minho? Asked Gon. All of it. Our homeworld, our fleets, billions of my people, consumed by creatures we call the Void Spawn. They appeared from the darkness between galaxies and swept through our territory like wildfire. Dr. Kong leaned forward. How is that possible? Your military technology is centuries ahead of ours. Talak's mandibles clicked with bitter laughter. Our weapons made them stronger. Every energy blast we fired, every explosion we created, they absorbed it all and grew larger. We threw everything we had at them and only fed their hunger. On Talak's ship, the bridge was crowded with Veltar refugees. Warriors who had once conquered worlds, now huddled together in fear. Children who had never known defeat cried for parents who would never return. How many of you survived? Minho asked quietly. Perhaps 10,000, from an empire of 50 billion, Talak replied. We are all that remains of my people. The creatures are moving toward human space now. You have perhaps days before they arrive. The Earth Defense Council met in emergency session within the hour. The great chamber buzzed with angry voices as politicians and military leaders argued about what to do. They're lying, shouted General Kim Taiho, pounding his fist on the table. This is some Veltha trick to invade our space. With 10,000 refugees against our entire military. Admiral Park Yuna countered. That doesn't make sense. The Velthar are our enemies, insisted Senator Yuguan. They've attacked human colonies for decades. We can't trust them. Minho stood up slowly, and the chamber gradually fell quiet. Everyone knew the story of his encounter with the Velthar ship years ago, though few believed it. I've seen the long-range scanner reports, he said. Something is destroying star systems as it moves toward us. Something that defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy in a matter of days. Even if that's true, General Kim replied, why should we help them? They would never help us. Because, Minho said, looking around the room, one of them already. Did he activated the main display, showing the approaching darkness on the galaxy map. Entire sectors were going black as the void spawn consumed everything in their path. Look at this, he continued. Whatever these things are, they don't care about politics or old grudges. They're going to destroy everything, human, Velthar, everyone. Our only chance is to work together. You want us to ally with our enemies? Senator, you asked. I want us to survive, Minho replied. And right now, those enemies are the only ones who have actually fought these creatures and lived to tell about it. The debate raged for hours, but eventually fear won over hatred. The vote was close, 51% in favor of granting sanctuary to the Velthar refugees. As Talak's ships were escorted to a safe harbor near Jupiter, Minho wondered if they had just made the right choice or the biggest mistake in human history. But as he watched the darkness creep closer on the star charts, he knew they would find out soon enough. The debt of mercy given years ago was about to be repaid in ways neither species could have imagined. The first human fleet to encounter the void spawn lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral Minho watched the battle recordings in the command center, his face pale as the images played out on the main screen. 24 Earth defense ships had engaged what looked like living shadows, dark creatures that moved through space like oil flowing through water. Every weapon we fired made them stronger, reported Captain Yuguan, one of the few survivors. Her ship limped back to Earth, with half its hull missing. Our missiles, our energy cannons, even our nuclear warheads, they absorbed everything and grew larger. Dr. Kong Hai-Hung studied the sensor data with growing horror. The creatures convert all forms of energy into biomass. They're literally eating our attacks and using them to multiply. How many are there now? Asked Commander Osoman. Best estimate. They've doubled in size since consuming our fleet. The room fell silent. If Earth's most advanced weapons only made the enemy stronger, How could they possibly fight back? We need to speak with the Veltor, Minho said finally. They're the only ones who've survived fighting these things. The refugee camp on Jupiter's moon Europa was a sad sight. Proud Velthar warriors, who had once conquered entire star systems, now lived in temporary shelters made from salvaged ship parts. Their children played with broken toys, while their parents stared at the stars, remembering worlds that no longer existed. Talek met Minho at the camp's entrance. The sub-commander looked older, his once shining armor now dull and patched, but his eyes still held the intelligence that had saved Minho's life years ago. I saw the reports of your fleet's defeat, Talek said as they walked through the camp. You tried the same tactics we did, direct energy attacks. What else were we supposed to do? Minho asked. Learn from our mistakes. Talek led him to a makeshift laboratory where Veltor scientists worked alongside human refugees. We discovered something important in our final battles. The creatures cannot process certain frequencies. Dr. Kang, who had joined them for the meeting, pulled out her tablet. What kind of frequencies? Quantum resonance patterns. Your human technology naturally generates them, but at levels too low to affect the void spawn. A young Velthor scientist named Curlin clicked her mandibles excitedly. But if we combine human quantum systems with our bioneural networks, we might amplify the effect. Bioneural networks? Dr. Kang asked. Talek gestured to the living walls around them. Everything in the Velthor camp seemed partly organic, pulsing with its own life. Our technology grows rather than being built. It thinks and adapts like a living creature. And you think mixing our technologies could create weapons that work against these things? Not weapons, Curlin corrected. Tools of disruption. The void spawn exist partly in normal space, and partly in quantum dimensions. The right frequency could force them back into the quantum realm where they cannot feed. Dr. Kong's eyes lit up with understanding, like using the wrong radio frequency to break up a signal. Exactly. The next weeks saw an unprecedented cooperation between two species that had been enemies for generations. Human engineers worked side by side with Velthor biotechnicians in laboratories across the solar system. On Mars Research Station, Engineer Park Yuno watched in fascination as Velthor organisms merged with human computer systems. The bio networks learned to process quantum frequencies while human circuits provided the precise mathematical calculations needed. It's like watching two different languages become one, she reported to Admiral Minho. The first prototype weapons were tested on Jupiter's moons. Instead of explosive projectiles or energy beams, they fired waves of pure quantum frequency. The results were promising. Test targets simply phased out of normal space, pushed back into quantum dimensions where they could cause no harm. But the void spawn were already adapting. Admiral, Commander O, called from her station. Long range. Sensors show the creatures changing course. They're moving faster now, directly toward Earth. On the main screen, the approaching darkness looked like a cancer spreading across the star map. Entire solar systems went black as the creatures consumed them. How long do we have? Minho asked. 48 hours, maybe less. Dr. Kong rushed into the command center, her face flushed with excitement and fear. The quantum weapons work, but not well enough. We can push individual creatures back, but there are millions of them now. They'll overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Talek stood beside her, his expression grim. There is one possibility we have not explored. What's that? The frequency that affects them most is not generated by machines. It comes from consciousness itself, from the quantum patterns created by living minds. Minho frowned. You mean thoughts can hurt them? Not thoughts exactly, Curlin explained, joining the group, but the quantum resonance created when minds work together in harmony. We discovered this during our final battle. Velthar warriors who fought as one unit, thinking and feeling together, could disrupt small groups of void spawn. But humans and Velthar think differently. Dr. Kong pointed out. Our brains work in completely different ways. Yes, Talek said quietly. That is why we need a bridge between our minds. Someone from each species willing to link their consciousness through bioneural connection. Is that even possible? We do not know. The neural feedback could kill both participants. Admiral Minho looked out at the approaching darkness, then at the mixture of human and Velthor personnel working desperately around him. 3 years ago, these two species had been enemies. Now their survival depended on becoming something new. How many volunteers would we need? Thousands, Talek replied. Maybe tens of thousands. And you think people will be willing to risk their lives to link minds with former enemies? Talek's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was a smile. Admiral, yesterday you were willing to risk everything to save refugees you should have hated. Today, my people work beside yours to save a world that is not even their home. I think both our species are capable of more than we ever imagined. The void spawn arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a living nightmare. Through the telescopes on Luna Base, they looked like giant jellyfish made of darkness, their bodies pulsing with stolen light from the stars they had consumed. Admiral Minho stood in the Joint Command Center, watching as thousands of the creatures moved past Neptune's orbit. Human and Velthor officers worked side by side at control stations, their former hatred forgotten in the face of extinction. First wave contact in 6 hours, reported Captain Yuguan from the bridge of the New Sol. Her ship was one of 50 vessels in the combined fleet, each one equipped with the new quantum bioweapons developed over the past month. All ships maintain formation, Minho ordered. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, we're trying to push them back into quantum space where they can't feed. Talek stood beside him, his scarred armor reflecting the lights from the tactical displays. Admiral, the consciousness-linking volunteers are ready. Minho looked at the list of names on his tablet. 3,000 humans and 2,000 Velthar had volunteered to risk their lives in the experimental mind-linking process. They would be connected through bioneural networks, their thoughts joined to create a powerful quantum field. Are you sure about this? Dr. Kong Hoon asked as she checked the linking equipment one final time. We've only tested it with small groups. This many minds connected at once, ... could kill them all, Talek finished. But without it, we have no chance at all. The first battle began near Jupiter. Captain Park Yuna led a squadron of 12 ships against a group of smaller void spawn. The quantum weapons fired streams of pure frequency energy, and for a moment it looked like they might work. Direct hits on targets 7 and 9, Yuna reported. They're phasing out. Wait, no. They're adapting. The frequency isn't affecting them anymore. Minho watched in horror as the creatures absorbed the weapon fire and grew larger. Within minutes, they had learned to resist the quantum frequencies entirely. All ships, fall back to Mars' defensive line, he ordered. But the retreat became a disaster. The void spawn moved faster than anyone had expected, surrounding 3 human vessels before they could escape. The ships simply vanished, consumed so completely that not even debris remained. They're learning from every attack, Commander Osoman reported from the Mars command post. Each group we fight shares knowledge with the others instantly. How many ships have we lost? Minho asked. 17, so far. And the main force is still coming. Dr. Kong studied the sensor readings with growing desperation. The creatures are changing, becoming more organized. They're forming into larger groups, coordinating their movements. They're preparing for something, Talek observed. A final assault. The answer came 12 hours later. The main body of void spawn had gathered at the asteroid belt, forming into a single massive entity that dwarfed Earth's moon. It pulsed with the light of 1,000 consumed stars, and its very presence seemed to bend space around it. It's heading directly for Earth, Captain Yu announced from her damaged ship. All remaining vessels, Fall back to Luna Base, Minho ordered. We make our last stand here. The consciousness-linking chambers had been built in Luna's underground tunnels, protected by layers of rock and metal. Thousands of volunteers lay on bioneural beds, human and Velthor, side by side, their minds connected by organic cables that pulsed with their own life. Beginning the linking process, announced Dr. Kang from the control room. The first connections were gentle, human thoughts touching Velthar consciousness like cautious handshakes. But as more minds joined the network, something unexpected happened. Instead of the chaotic mental noise everyone had feared, the linked minds began to harmonize. Minho felt his awareness expand as his consciousness merged with Talek's through the Velthor's senses. He experienced emotions that had no human names, the deep satisfaction of serving one's hive, the warrior's joy in protecting the weak, the profound sadness of watching one's entire civilization die. I can feel them all, whispered Engineer Park Yuna from her linking chamber. Every human, every Velthor, were becoming something new. The quantum field generated by the linked minds was unlike anything science had predicted. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a living force that pulsed with the combined will of two species fighting for survival. The creature is entering Earth's atmosphere, reported the automated defense systems. Through the linked consciousness, every volunteer felt the massive void spawn descending toward their world. It was enormous beyond imagination, its hunger, so vast it could consume entire civilizations. But they also felt something else, the creature's confusion. It had never encountered minds linked across species before. The quantum patterns generated by human Velthor consciousness were completely alien to it. Now, Minho thought through the link, and 5,000 minds responded as one. The quantum pulse erupted from Luna Base like a wave of pure thought. It washed over the descending void spawn, and for the first time since the creatures had appeared, one of them stopped moving. It's working, Dr. Kong shouted. The creature is destabilizing, but the effort was enormous. In the linking chambers, volunteers began to collapse as their minds struggled with the neural feedback. The bioneural cables sparked and burned, overloaded by the massive psychic energy. We're losing the connection, Talek managed to say through gritted teeth. The network is breaking down. Through the quantum link, Minho felt dozens of minds going dark as volunteers sacrificed themselves to maintain the pulse. Each loss made the remaining connections stronger, but more dangerous. The void spawn writhed in Earth's atmosphere, its massive form flickering between dimensions as the quantum field tore at its essence. But it was fighting back, adapting even to this new attack. One more push, Minho broadcast through the failing link. Everything we have. The remaining volunteers poured their life force into the connection. Human and Velthor dying together to create a final, devastating pulse. The final quantum pulse erupted from the consciousness-linking network with the force of a dying star. Admiral Minho felt every volunteer's mind connected to his own as they poured their life energy into one last desperate attack. The massive void spawn, hovering above Earth, writhed in agony as the wave hit it. For the first time since the creatures had appeared, one of them made a sound, a terrible shriek that echoed across dimensions. It's working, Dr. Kong shouted from the control room, her voice barely audible over the alarms. The creature is breaking apart. Through his connection to Talek, Minho experienced the Velthor warriors' memories of their first battle against the void spawn. He felt the despair of watching entire fleets consumed in minutes, the grief of losing billions of lives, and now, hope. But the neural feedback was killing them in the linking chambers. Volunteers collapsed one by one as their minds overloaded. The bioneural cables connecting them sparked and burned, filling the air with the smell of ozone and dying organic tissue. Admiral, we're losing too many people, Commander Osoman reported, her own voice weak from strain. The network is collapsing. Minho could feel it happening. Each mind that disconnected made the quantum pulse weaker, but it also reduced the killing feedback on the survivors. They were caught in an impossible balance. Too few minds and the pulse would fail. Too many, and they would all die. Hold the connection, he broadcast through the failing link. Just a little longer. Above Earth, the giant void spawn was dissolving. Its dark mass scattered into smaller pieces that flickered between normal space and quantum dimensions. But even as it died, it was sending signals to other creatures throughout the galaxy, through the quantum link. Talek suddenly stiffened. Admiral, I'm receiving communications from the Spawn network. They're calling for reinforcements. Thousands of them are heading this way. How long do we have? Minutes, not hours. Dr. Kang studied her instruments with growing horror. The pulse is weakening. We need more power to reach the incoming creatures, but the volunteers can't take much more. In his linking chamber, Talek made a decision that would echo through both their species' history. He began redirecting the neural feedback from human volunteers into his own consciousness, using his Velthor bioneural systems to absorb the deadly overload. What are you doing? Minho asked, through their mental connection. What you did for my people years ago, Talek replied, showing mercy to those who should be enemies. Other Velthar volunteers followed his example, sacrificing themselves to protect their human partners in the link. The gesture created something unprecedented, a feedback loop of pure, emotional resonance that amplified the quantum pulse beyond anything they had imagined possible. Power levels are increasing exponentially, Dr. Kong announced in amazement. The emotional connection between the species is creating its own quantum field. The pulse spread outward from Earth like ripples in a cosmic pond. It reached the asteroid belt, where dozens of smaller void spawn were instantly pushed back into quantum space. It continued to Jupiter, where hundreds more creatures simply vanished. But the effort was consuming the volunteers at an alarming rate. Talek, Minho called, through their mental link. Your life signs are failing, as are yours, my friend. The Veltor's consciousness was growing dim, but look what we have accomplished. Through their shared awareness, both leaders could see the quantum pulse reaching across the entire galaxy. Every void spawn it touched was forced back into the quantum dimensions where they belonged. The creatures that had consumed entire civilizations were being undone by the power of two species working as one. The pulse is self-sustaining now, Dr. Kang reported. The emotional resonance is creating a permanent quantum field. But Admiral ... I know, Minho whispered. He could feel his own life force fading as the neural connection burned out his brain. In his final moments, Talek shared one last memory with the human Admiral. It was the moment years ago when he had chosen mercy over duty, saving Minho's research ship instead of destroying it. Such a small act, yet it had led to this, the salvation of two species, and perhaps the entire galaxy. Thank you, Minho managed to say through the link. Thank you, Talek replied, and then his consciousness faded into quantum space. The pulse completed its work 12 minutes later. Across the galaxy, the last of the void spawn flickered out of normal space, driven back to the quantum realm by a wave of pure compassion and sacrifice. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Park Yunus stood in the memorial garden on Luna Base. Thousands of names were carved into the quantum crystal monument, humans and Velthar, who had died together to save both their peoples. But their sacrifice had created something unexpected. The survivors of the consciousness linking process had been permanently changed. Humans now carried traces of Velthor bioneural pathways in their brains, while the remaining Velthor had developed human-style quantum resonance fields. The children are the most remarkable, Dr. Kong explained as they watched young humans and Velthar playing together in the garden. They can communicate through thought alone, sharing emotions and memories as easily as speaking. Yuna smiled as she watched a human girl teaching a young Velthor how to build castles. Neither species was the same as before. They had become something new, something better. Do you think Admiral Minho knew this would happen? She asked. Dr. Kong considered the question. I think he knew that mercy, once given, creates bonds that can never be broken. He just didn't realize those bonds could save the galaxy. Above them, the stars shone brighter than before, freed from the darkness that had threatened to consume them all. And in the quantum fields that now connected every human and Velther mind, the memory of that first act of mercy continued to echo, a reminder that compassion, not conquest, was the true path to survival among the stars.